Hi and welcome everyone to our 57th episode of The Little Inside. I'm still Tobi, and this week I'm going to talk a little bit about how to deal with difficult people. Let's get started right after the intro. How many times did you have to deal with a difficult person or a difficult situation? You've probably had your fair share of dealing with difficult people. So did I. And I think all of us really had to put up with those difficult people and difficult situations a few times during our life. Now that's something I would say that connects all of us, right? We all had to do and deal with problematic people. People that just got on our nerves, that stressed us out, that were unpleasant, and so forth. Now, what is it that makes people difficult? Well, the answer to that one is really simple. It's suffering. Suffering makes people difficult. When they're having a hard time, when they suffer, they are becoming difficult. They're becoming uneasy, restless, and tense. And it's going to be really hard to spend time around them or near them. Because their suffering, it radiates out of their being. And it's almost like a virus. It can infect us. And then what happens when there is such a difficult person in my vicinity? Then their suffering spills over and it enters my being. Or it goes into resonance with my suffering. What I do in a response is I suffer the difficult person that's there in front of me. So when two people suffer, then you have two people who are difficult. There's that one person that looks at the other, like let's say Mr. A looking at Mr. B, and Mr. A thinks, Mr. B is really difficult today. It's really hard to deal with this Mr. B. And Mr. B sees Mr. A as the difficult person. Mr. A, my God, why doesn't he ever listen to me? I feel so misunderstood by Mr. A. He's always just constantly thinking about himself. And so you have two people who are suffering each other, right? That creates two difficult people. In another scenario, let's say Mr. A has his grumpy day, he's feeling a bit unhappy, and then he sees Mr. B, and Mr. B is really happy, he has a great day. But Mr. A experiences Mr. B as really difficult. Look at this guy, he's constantly joyful. I wonder if he pretends to be joyful. Is that real? I think he's quite fake. Look at him going off there with his joyful little songs and whatnot, I don't believe this. This is not real. So we are very angry. Mr. A is very angry at Mr. B for being joyful and perceives Mr. B as a very difficult person. So it begs the question, where do difficult people really arise? Well, again, the answer is really simple. A difficult person arises within the mind of a difficult person. So, in other words, a difficult person is seen in the mind of the one who suffers. If we do not suffer other people, then other people cannot possibly appear as being difficult. So difficult people do not really exist out there. You can't say, well, this person is really difficult, because it's our perception of that person that makes that person difficult. And it's our resistance to this person that makes that person feel difficult. It's not really that the person is difficult, it's that we actually are difficult, or we are experiencing difficult on our inside. I always like to reflect just how many times have I possibly been difficult to other people? How many times have I created problems for other people? That were quite many times in my life, I must admit. I'm sure that I really gave many people in my life a hard time through being dishonest, through just being who I am. Maybe just even walking down the street somewhere and someone just saw me there and thought like, oh, what's this guy doing here walking down the street? Yes, so it's really important to reflect for me in this way, to actually consider, okay, how many times am I actually being perceived as difficult? What are the chances? I ask you, what do you think? How many times do you think are other people actually perceiving you as a difficult person, hard to deal with, unpleasant, uncomfortable, not listening, not paying attention? Do you think that's the case? I'm pretty sure for myself that this is the case. I'm sure that many people, they perceive me as being quite unpleasant. And that's okay. This is pretty normal in this world. Like, some people, they will see you as their friend. They will really like you. And some people, maybe watching this video right now, they think like, oh God, what's this guy talking about? Right? Some they watch this video, they feel, oh wow, this looks like a nice guy there. So either you're having a happy mind so you can appreciate what you see, whoever that is, or you have an unhappy mind and then the world will appear very difficult. The more unhappy our mind is, the more difficult the world will appear, the more bothersome it will appear. The more happy your mind, the more nice the world actually will appear, the more you can see nice things in this world. If you have a mind that can appreciate other people, if you have a mind that can enjoy presence, you have a mind that can be free from thought, the world appears like a pleasant place to abide in because you are pleasant. So it's really important to understand this deeply. There are no difficult people other than in our perception. There is nobody is difficult outside of our own perception of them. So it is very possible to understand others and to forgive them. It is also very possible to understand ourselves and to forgive ourselves. One of the most direct ways that really clarifies situations very often is to understand that we all suffer. Nobody wants to suffer. It's a very simple reflection. And everybody wants to be happy. I want to be happy, so does everyone else around me. We're all constantly trying to be more comfortable, to be more at ease, to be happy, to be well, to be safe, to be loved, to be seen, to be heard. This is what we all continuously try, right? So if we can see that, we feel a sense of connection. Like, look, I want to be happy, and probably the same for you guys who are watching right now. You also want to be happy. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to experience hardship and stress and illness and death and loss. And you're probably much the same. You also don't want to suffer, and whatever you perceive as suffering, you don't want to get there. So this is something that connects us, and through this connection there is understanding, and through this understanding I can forgive you when you suffer, because I'm suffering too. And I can forgive you for being angry, because how many times have I been angry? And I can forgive you for experiencing human emotions, being erratic, changing your personality all the time. I can forgive you for that, because that's exactly what my mind does too. And reflecting in such a way softens the heart. It makes it more easy to connect. I think this is what's important in this world. To get along with each other, we have to learn to understand one another. And if we can only understand one another if we really learn to understand ourselves in the most substantial or most, let's say, in the most simple way. Nobody wants to suffer. Everybody is looking for happiness. Having said all that, I want to give you 3 tips of how to deal with difficult people once you're meeting difficult people. Well, the first one is, of course, to reflect properly, just as I just showed you before, to think of yourself, think of the other person with honesty. See them in terms of what they really are, not in terms of what your anger thinks they are. Now, once you're in a difficult situation, ask yourself the question, can I change it? Can I change anything about the situation? Can I make it better? Either through kindness, through forgiveness, through expressing honesty, through listening, through giving attention. Can you make it better? Is there a way that you can somehow solve the problem? Well, if there is a way to solve the problem, then solve it. That's the very first option, right? Second option, in case if there is no way to solve the problem. Let's say the other person just really wants to freak out about you, they really want to get angry about you, and there's nothing you can do to change their mind. Maybe they are angry because you really messed up. So there's nothing you can do. You can't really change anything. You've hurt their feelings, and now they are in front of you yelling at you. There's nothing much you can change or to get out of the situation there. Maybe you're in a situation that is very violent, very volatile, and the question is, can you get out of that situation? If you can get out of it, get out. Remove yourself from a negative event. If the event is very negative, violent even, or if it's deeply harmful to be in a certain relationship or something like this, then it's better to get out, Otherwise, you're being pulled down more and more by the situation and the circumstances. Circumstances are very important, actually. And we want to make sure to nourish our spirit, our mind, and our body with the right kind of circumstances, surround ourselves with the right kind of people, so that we can grow in all areas of life. Finally, if you cannot change the situation and you cannot get out of the situation, you cannot withdraw, then at least relax. At least surrender and find inner peace. So if you can change it, change it. If you cannot change it, ask yourself, can you get out of the situation? Can you avoid it somehow? Or if you cannot get out, well, can you at least relax? There is a fourth option, but it's kind of a funny option. The fourth option is to just suffer, right? And well, even though it's a funny option, many people go for that option because of simply not knowing themselves, not being self-aware. So we just go into a suffering mode. Oh, poor me, poor me. And we just don't change anything. Sometimes we don't see our inner patterns, and we keep kind of reliving the same problems over and over again in our life. So it's really important to learn to be self-aware and to actually analyze the situation. If there's something that you can do to optimize it, to make it better, do it. If not, relax or get out. So these are the three ways of dealing with difficult people or difficult situations. And at the very beginning of this talk, I gave this the way of actually reflecting on difficult people, because we are difficult people ourselves to others very often. So it's really important to keep that in mind. And it's even though others appear most of the time to go onto our nerves or to kind of annoy us, it's actually ourselves very often that annoy other people too. So don't forget that. Remember that. Keep it in mind. And keep in mind that just like yourself, others have so many good qualities. Reflect on them often and remember them, keep them in mind, forget their mistakes and downfalls, and focus on their qualities. And you will see that it will improve the quality of your relationships with other people greatly. So here we are coming to the end of episode 57. I hope it was meaningful and useful for you as always. If you do have any questions, feel free to write them down in the comment section below or send me an email. I'm looking forward to see all of you guys again next Wednesday, and I'm wishing you a wonderful next week. Bye-bye.